I wasn't too by memory there. Let those who are accustomed to admire things which are forbidden and so on, notice that it is possible that great men can exist even under bad emperors. And he says it is possible with due submission and moderation and intelligence to lead a worthy life of distinction and even attain a level of fame which is more easily attained by someone who brings on himself an ostentatious death but with no benefit to the republic. Now, what does that mean? Very, again, Tacitean brevity. He refers to the fact that there are other examples which Tacitus is conspicuously non-endorsing, who make some bold show of opposing the emperor, standing up for freedom or whatever, in a situation which is utterly hopeless, and all it does is give them a famous death and no good to anybody. And Tacitus is saying, no, the better alternative is Agricola. Try to adapt, keep a certain sense of decency, refrain from doing evil things, but don't try to give your life to no purpose. Don't go with the stoic gesture of standing up for liberty where liberty is not even possible. Do the best you can in the circumstances. Agricola illustrates that. Agricola is one alternative that Machiavelli admits works. If you are a successful general under a prince, there are two courses which can work, and both of them are extreme. The one course is Agricola's. Put yourself wholly in the power of the prince and hope for the best. That's what Agricola did. The other extreme is keep your troops together and punish the prince for the ingratitude which he will doubtless show to you if you don't. Right? Which, in a way, substituting the political system of Rome or the Senate for prince, that was Julius Caesar's alternative. Right? He punished them for the ingratitude they would doubtless have shown him had he not crossed the Rubicon and put them down. Those are the two extremes. Machiavelli says most people take a middle course and it never works. Right? Middle course, they can't quite give up a little bit of boasting, a little bit of increasing their own power. They can't quite revolt against the prince and put him down, which Machiavelli recommends. I think Machiavelli prefers that alternative to Agricola, frankly. Or they're not quite willing to take Agricola's alternative. They take something in between, which is less successful. So Agricola represents for Tacitus, it's the first example. I mean, it's only one example, obviously. But it's something you are alerted, I think, to keep your eye for as you read the histories and the annals. Who is there who seems to exemplify this kind of approach? Who's able to have some kinds of elements of integrity and dignity, while not just bringing on himself a spectacular but useless death. And that seems to be what Tacitus is recommending for those in political life. One suspects that is the path he followed. Tacitus himself moved up the cursus honorum, the course of hierarchical course of offices and honors in Rome, served as consul in 97, served probably as proconsul of Asia somewhat later. So in other words, he made it to the top of the political hierarchy, in spite of he was the first to be of consular rank in his family. His father made it up partway, but not all the way. And he came from probably Gallic origins. The Roman Empire at that stage is opening up its citizenship more broadly and bringing in new people, not least because, as you see happening in the pages of Tacitus's histories, so many of the old noble families of Rome end up being put to death and extinguished. So new senators are brought in. There's a wonderful speech in favor of that put in the mouth of Claudius by Tacitus in the annals. And Claudius did, in fact, sponsor such legislation and give such a speech, which has actually been found. And Tacitus's speech is along the lines of Claudius's, although better. but it's true to what historically Claudius did, and then somewhat perfected by Tacitus. So that's on the side of a practical political life. Now, turning to the dialogue on oratory, you see, that raises the question of, well, is there another way to live? And the setting of that dialogue indicates, well, yes, indeed, there is, and it gets discussed. It's the occasion of the discussion. Tacitus, actually, let me give a little bit more of the setup. Tacitus writes the dialogue on oratory in response to a question from his friend, Justus Lipsius, if I'm remembering, who asked him, why is it that oratory has declined so much to our day from what it was in the past? And Tacitus says basically, ooh, what a difficult question, I wouldn't dare answer that. But fortunately, I can just remember a discussion I overheard in my youth when various people great in oratory at that time discussed exactly that question. And then he tells that whole story and presents that whole dialogue. Now, the setting is a man named Maternus, who has had a very successful career as an orator in Rome, has basically given up oratory and turned to poetry, to writing plays. He has given a reading of his play, The Cato, the night before. Cato, of course, you could describe as the last great hero of the Republic, the guy who committed suicide once Julius Caesar had won, because he saw it was the end of the Republic, and who could endure that? Maternus had read his play on Cato, and word was getting about that powerful people's minds were disturbed, were upset, were angry at this. And so some of his friends come by to warn him of this and to talk to him about it. And he, so this is under Vespasian. This takes place probably about, I think a phrase in it says 6 years into the reign of Vespasian. And so that's about, 75 or 6 when Tacitus is 18 or 19. Tacitus describes himself at that time. He's hanging around with two of these characters who are lawyers, and he's like apprenticing with them in the old style, learning from them, accompanying them, and so on. And so that's how he is present at this discussion. So they come, and what takes place now is a discussion. After sort of warning him about this, and he says, well, if they don't like this, wait till they read my next play. Somewhat defiantly, it's fair to say. Aper makes a case to Maternus that he is deeply mistaken to give up rhetoric, oratory, usually rhetoric, oratory, political action, right? I mean, the chief political action for you as a Roman is an oratorical career. Two chief careers, right, if you want to go into politics. Military or oratory. So here it's the oratorical. The oratorical, I think, stands for the practical political life, and Aper defends that, the power of oratory, the insignificance by contrast of poetry. He says poetry is fine if you're no good at oratory. There are some people like that. They just can't hack it. So let them go be poets. But not you, Maternus. You're good. Keep doing the good stuff, which matters, instead of going off and doing poetry. And then from there is a discussion on the topic which Tacitus had announced already. Then there is a discussion. Another character comes in, Messala, and there's a discussion about the decline of oratory. And the decline of oratory is discussed in many interesting ways. Most interesting, ultimately, Maternus, our playwright, former rhetorician, former orator, gives the explanation that it turns on the difference of regime. The greatest oratory comes from the days of Cicero, which are the last days of the Republic, and it's a disordered republic where the greatest issues are at stake, and it brings forth the greatest efforts of oratory to try to deal with those. In our day, he says, where